Good Sunday afternoon, friends. It's me, Terry. I don't do videos on Sunday, Lambertson. Coming at you with a very special message today, friends. Over the last several days, I have been hearing about Christians expressing the fact that the fires in California are divine retribution, and we should let it burn. This just absolutely flabbergasts me. As a person who spent 40 plus years in the Los Angeles area, has family members who live there, and has a deep-seated, beautiful memories of time spent in so many places that no longer exist, it just blows my mind that people who claim to follow Jesus can actually think this is true. Here are some Bible-based reasons why it's just not okay to think this way. Firstly, how do you know this is an act of retribution? Did God tell you? Can you give me even one New Testament reference where God or Jesus does anything of the sort? Right, I get that from the point of argument. There are so many Old Testament illustrations, Sodom and Gomorrah, the plagues on Egypt. But my friends, this is how the world operated when we were under the law. This is why Jesus came to save us from that. We cannot follow the laws. There are too many of them. We are just fallible people. Not to mention, if we were still operating under the law and somebody raped you, your father would be paid the bride price and you would have to be married to your rapist for the rest of your life. Sounds ridiculous in modern times, doesn't it? Having to make a blood sacrifice to God in order to receive his blessing. This is why Jesus came. We no longer operate under the law. We live under grace. What do we know about God's character? The Bible describes God as a loving, merciful, and compassionate God. Psalm 103:8 says, "The Lord is compassionate and gracious, slow to anger, abiding in love." Luke 36:6 says, "Be merciful, just as your Father is merciful." It's inconsistent with God's character to assume that he would intentionally cause harm to people, especially without clear scriptural evidence. Jesus, that God causes the sun to rise on the evil and the good, and sends rain to the righteous and the unrighteous. Matthew 5:45. This suggests that natural disasters aren't necessarily punishment from God. The Bible acknowledges that suffering and disasters are part of the human experience. In Psalm 23:4, "Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me." This speaks to how God is always faithfully protecting us, even as we are disciplined. The Bible teaches that humans have a responsibility to care for creation. In Genesis 2:15, and to love their neighbors in Mark 12:31. The second is that you love your neighbor as yourself. There is no commandment greater than this. This would include taking action to prevent or mitigate natural disasters when possible. Instead of assuming a disaster is God's retribution, the Bible encourages believers to respond with compassion, prayer, and practical help. In Galatians 6:2, it says, "Carry each other's burdens, and in this way you will fulfill the law of Christ." While it's natural to seek spiritual explanations for natural disasters, it's essential to approach these situations with compassion, empathy, and understanding. Whole neighborhoods are gone. The schools, the markets, everything, leaving other areas to have to pick up the slack. already densely populated. Everyone is running around with all their important papers and pictures in their cars. They are texts away from evacuating, and many ended up having to get out of their cars and travel on foot because traffic was at a standstill. Power is constantly being cut off without notice, making it near impossible to keep provisions on hand. What about medicines and infant formulas that require refrigeration and home oxygen equipment? Let me fill you in on the real estate market out there. There are very few homes in inventory. They sell quick and often for more than the asking price because there is always a bidding war. They are also short on rental units, apartments, condos, and townhouses. Now, as of Friday night, 12,000 homes and multifamily units are gone. Even prior to this, because rents are so astronomical, there are whole neighborhoods where people have parked RVs, vans, trucks with campers over the beds, where people are living in them full time without sanitation or showers. There is a large homeless population because of the temperate weather. Where are people supposed to live while they wait for insurance companies to pay them penny on the dollar to rebuild? I have evidence that some have already illegally raised rents over 76% just in the last several days. Do you think God means for people to take advantage of the magnitude of human suffering taking place to make a profit off it? Can you spend even 5 minutes while you sit in the blessings of where you now live without the threat of fire being blown by the next gust of wind and taking everything you hold dear, maybe even the lives of people you hold dear, because unless these winds stop or it starts raining cats and dogs, the fire will not end until it runs out of fuel? And before I wrap this up, let me say something about the fact that this fire is no respecter of race, creed, or socioeconomic class. Where there are certainly people who have lost their homes and everything they owned who could start rebuilding tomorrow, insurance or no, they still lost kids' artwork. Their schools are gone. Their kids are traumatized. We all own things that are valuable beyond cash value. How would you want to be treated if this was happening in your neighborhood? Because it could happen to any of us. Ask the people of North Carolina how they feel after their community lost more than 125,000 housing units and are now living in tiny homes or tents through this winter. Please, during this time, if you can't help, please don't cause these children of God any more pain. I truly believe that many will find the Lord going through this experience, and some will be very, very angry at him as well. God knows this. Please be the hands and feet of Jesus, or be quiet.